Welcome, everyone, to this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
It's Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026, and you are joining us at a moment of just absolute monumental political tectonic shift.
Truly, it's happening right now in southern India.
Yeah, southern India. We are just weeks away from the historic May 2026 Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly election.
And if you've been paying even, a passing glance to the news out of the region,
You already know the atmosphere is completely electric.
oh, absolutely electric. It is a three-way political battle for the soul, the economy, and really the future of Tamil Nadu.
Right. And to help you make sense of this massive collision of forces, we've brought a mountain of source material to the table today.
We really have. We're looking at a highly detailed, data-driven academic paper.
Yeah, by Surya B. Aids out of the Sri Ashwar College of Engineering.
We also have an extensive analytical brief. It's titled The 2026 Tamil Nadu Electoral Paradigm.
And that brief does this incredible job of comparing the disruptive entry of brand new political players against the sheer weight of incumbent governance.
It really does. And on top of that, we're drawing from official historical records from Wikipedia covering the region's politics.
Right, including the histories of the emerging Tamilaga Vettri Kazhagam.
The TVK.
Exactly, the TBK, and the Tamil parties. Plus, recent NDTV news updates tracking the absolute chaos of political alliances right now.
Yeah, the alliances are shifting daily. We've even got translated YouTube transcripts straight from the sweat and dust of the campaign trail.
So our mission for you today is simple, but it's a big one. We are going to cut through the deafening noise of the campaign.
We want to unpack the raw economic data, the deep historical context, and the invisible structural strategies driving this election.
This is going to be a masterclass in how modern elections are fought right at the intersection of economic data, massive welfare programs, and unprecedented celebrity mobilization.
It really is a fascinating intersection of forces. And before we get into the weeds of the data and the history, it's crucial that we set a firm ground rule for this deep dive.
Yes, definitely.
Because the materials we're unpacking today contain highly charged political rhetoric.
Very charged.
We're talking about accusations that span the entire spectrum, from left-wing to right-wing ideologies.
There are claims of fascism, allegations of deep-seated systemic corruption,
And even incredibly dark accusations regarding engineered crowd tragedies.
Right. So our goal today is to strictly report the contents of these materials without taking any sides whatsoever.
Exactly. We're here to impartially convey the ideas, the strategies, and the claims of all the involved parties.
Whether that's the ruling DMK, the AIADMK, the BJP, the TVK, or any of their alliance partners.
We're analyzing the political chessboard for you, not endorsing the players moving the pieces.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand the earthquake that is this 2026 election, you have to understand the ground it's shaking.
You do.
Since 1967, Tamil Nadu politics has been completely dominated by Dravidian parties,
They have maintained this unbroken duopoly for decades.
passing power back and forth. But to really grasp the significance of what's happening now, we have to look even further back.
To the pre-Dravidian Congress era.
Right, the 1950s, and the towering figure of K. Kamaraj.
Yeah.
Why does a figure from the 1950s matter so much to an election happening in 2026?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Kamaraj era is literally the bedrock of modern Tamil Nadu's social welfare infrastructure.
Wow, okay.
You cannot understand modern Indian welfare economics without him. During his time as chief minister in the 1950s and early 60s, he completely revolutionized the state's approach to education.
How so?
His administration opened over 25,000 schools between 1954 and 1962.
That's massive.
It is. He made education free and compulsory for children up to the age of 14. But the true stroke of genius, and something that resonates heavily in the political strategies we see today, was the introduction of the first school midday meal scheme in 1957.
I want to pause on that because, it sounds like a simple administrative decision, feeding kids lunch.
Right.
But it was actually a massive social engineering project, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It was not just about nutrition. It was a brutal economic calculus. In the 1950s, a child from a poor rural family was an economic asset.
They needed to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To work in the fields or help at home. Asking a desperately poor family to send their child to school meant asking them to give up a source of labor and income.
Right, making it financially impossible for them.
Yes. So by providing a hot free meal at school, Kamaraj flipped the incentive structure.
Because suddenly sending your child to school meant one less mouth to feed at home.
Exactly. It was a massive financial relief mechanism disguised as an educational policy. It worked brilliantly, driving up enrollment numbers exponentially.
It did a lot more too, right?
He did. He pushed through massive irrigation projects and rural electrification. But despite this incredible administrative record, Kamaraj's era eventually gave way to the rise of the Dravidian movement.
And that Dravidian movement was rooted in something entirely different from just administrative competence.
Very different.
It was about social justice, state autonomy, and linguistic pride. The anti-Hindi agitations in the mid-1960s were a massive catalyst here.
A huge turning point.
The central government in New Delhi was pushing for Hindi to be the sole official language of India, and Tamil Nadu absolutely erupted.
Students took to the streets,
protesting the imposition of a language they felt threatened their ancient Tamil identity.
And this linguistic nationalism led to the Dravidia-Vettri Kazhagam, the DMK, completely routing the Indian National Congress in the 1967 elections.
That single moment ended Congress's stronghold in the state permanently.
It did.
But what I find so compelling is how that movement evolved and fractured over the decades. You have C.N. Annadurai as the first DMK chief minister, succeeded by N. Karunanidhi.
Yes.
And then we see the birth of what is arguably the most unique aspect of the state, the celebrity worship culture in Tamil Nadu politics.
It is the defining characteristic of the state's political culture, and it's crucial to understanding the 2026 landscape.
Walk us through how that started.
Well, in 1972, the massive cinematic icon M.G. Ramachandran, universally known as MGR, split from Karunanidhi's DMK.
Okay.
He formed his own party, the All India Vettri Kazhagam, or the AIADMK. Now, MGR was not just an actor, he was a phenomenon.
Like a demigod to his fans.
Truly. On screen, he meticulously crafted a persona. He always played the righteous champion of the poor, the man who fought injustice, the flawless hero.
And he leveraged that.
He leveraged that immense on-screen popularity directly into political capital. He took his massive network of film fan clubs, known as Razagar Mandrams, and essentially converted them overnight into a grassroots political cadre.
That is wild.
It worked. He served as chief minister from 1977 until his death in 1987. That established a recognized, historically viable pathway in Tamil Nadu. Cinematic star power transitioning directly into immense political power.
And it didn't stop with MGR. After his death, his political heir, J. Jayalalitha, who was also a massive film star and frequent co-star, eventually took control of the AIADMK.
And she served multiple terms as chief minister.
Right. You also had Vijay forming the DMDK in 2005, and more recently, Kamal Hassan launching Makal Niti Mayam.
It's a proven formula.
In a state practically invented by actor politicians, this transition from the silver screen to the chief minister's chair is heavily tested.
But the current landscape has shifted dramatically.
How so?
Jayalalitha passed away in 2016, and Karunanidhi passed away in 2018.
So the two towering patriarchs figures who dominated the state's consciousness for half a century are gone.
Exactly. And their deaths created a massive leadership vacuum. So how are the current players filling that void as we hurtle toward this May 2026 election?
That vacuum is the engine driving the current three-way battle. Let's look at the incumbent first.
MK Stalin.
Right, Karunanidhi's son. He successfully consolidated his position within the DMK after his father's death. He led the Secular Progressive Alliance to a decisive victory in the 2021 Assembly election.
And now heading into 2026, Stalin's strategy is fundamentally defensive, but it is incredibly highly structured.
He's trying to hold down an incumbent fortress using a massive statewide strategy dubbed the Dravidian Model 2.0.
I was reading through the 2026 Tamil Nadu electoral paradigm brief, and the numbers they present for this Dravidian model seem unusually high for an incumbent government.
What exactly is driving this? Because it seems built on pairing heavy economic growth with incredibly intense social welfare.
The economic metrics they're using to shield themselves from anti-incumbency are staggering. Let's look at the math.
Okay, lay it on us.
Under the previous AIADMK regimes from 2011 to 2021, the state's gross state domestic product, the GSDP, saw growth rates hovering between 5.2% and 6.7%.
That's respectable.
It is, but under the DMK, it has surged to an 11.19% growth rate for the financial year ending in 2025.
Wow, over 11%.
Yes. We're looking at a 31.19 lakh crore economy. For you listeners globally, 1 lakh is 100,000 and a crore is 10 million.
So that translates to an economy of roughly 370 billion US dollars.
Exactly. And the Stalin administration has a stated Vision 2030 plan to transform Tamil Nadu into a $1 trillion economy.
$1 trillion is a massive target. Where is that growth actually coming from? Are they just riding a post-pandemic wave, or is there a structural shift in their industry?
It is a deliberate structural shift, heavily focused on high-value manufacturing, specifically electronics and electric vehicles.
Interesting.
The state has actively positioned itself as the alternative to China for global supply chains. Electronic goods exports doubled from $26.16 billion under the previous AIADMK government to $52.07 billion under the DMK.
Doubled? That's no small feat.
It makes Tamil Nadu the undisputed #1 state in India for electronic exports. They have inaugurated a massive $2 billion VinFast electric vehicle plant in Thoothukudi and a 9,000 crore multi-energy vehicle plant by Tata Motors and Jaguar Land Rover in Renipet.
And jobs. What does that mean for employment?
The government claims this specific industrial push has created an estimated 31 lakh jobs. That is 3.1 million jobs.
Okay, so they are generating massive industrial wealth. But here's where it gets really interesting in terms of political strategy.
Right.
They aren't just sitting on that wealth or using it to pay down state debt. They're funneling it directly into what the academic papers call a welfare shield.
They're funding massive social safety nets that impact the daily, granular lives of millions of voters.
Let's look at one specific program, the Magalir Video Payanam scheme.
The free bus travel.
Yes, it provides free bus travel for women. As of May 2025, this scheme has provided 682 crore zero-ticket rides for women.
6.8 billion rides.
How does a policy like that actually alter the political landscape?
It fundamentally alters household economics and, by extension, voter loyalty.
Think about what a zero-ticket ride means for a working-class woman in a semi-urban area.
She doesn't have to pay for her daily commute.
Exactly. And because of that, she can afford to travel further to find a better-paying job. She no longer has to ask her husband or family members for travel fare, giving her a degree of financial independence.
That's huge. And over a month, the savings from those bus fares can be redirected into household groceries or children's needs. It is economic liberation disguised as a transit policy.
And then you pair that with the Chief Minister's breakfast scheme, which is feeding over 2.05 million students every morning.
Which is a direct callback to Kamaraj's midday meal scheme from 1957.
Precisely. It's a continuation and an expansion of that deeply ingrained Dravidian social justice ethos.
We also have the Pudumai Pen and the Tamil Pudhalvan schemes.
Right, which provide direct financial assistance of €1,000 per month directly into the bank accounts of students from government schools who enroll in higher education.
These are not abstract macroeconomic policies. These are highly granular daily impact schemes. The academic paper by Surya B. Aids points out that the DNK has incredibly deep organizational penetration at the booth and ward levels.
They have party workers on every street making sure these benefits are delivered.
And more importantly, ensuring the voters know exactly which party delivered them.
I want you to just imagine trying to unseat a government that literally pays for your daily commute to work, puts 1,000 rupees in your college-bound child's bank account every month, and provides your youngest child's breakfast every single morning.
It's incredibly difficult.
That is what political scientists mean by an anti-incumbency shield. You aren't just asking a citizen to vote on an abstract political theory, you're asking them to vote against their own tangible daily financial relief.
But of course, an election is never just about policy or economics. It's about the narrative you spin around those policies.
Exactly. So how is Stalin framing this 2026 election to his base?
He is painting it as an existential battle of Tamil Nadu versus New Delhi.
Oh, okay.
The DMK's rhetorical strategy is to consolidate regionalist pride to the absolute maximum. They are actively framing the BJP, which rules at the federal center in New Delhi, as a centralizing fascist force that inherently threatens Tamil autonomy, linguistic pride, and state rights.
So they're essentially trying to force voters into a binary choice. The narrative they're pushing is that any vote against the DMK or any vote that fractures the opposition to the BJP is effectively a pro-BJP vote.
It's a brilliant strategy to keep their massive alliance, which includes the Congress Party, the left parties, the VCK, and others, tightly unified against a single, common external enemy.
It is a textbook consolidation strategy. If you can convince your voters that the house is on fire, they won't complain about the leaky faucet.
Right, but that unified binary narrative is hitting a massive 15 million member roadblock.
And that brings us to the disruptor of this entire electoral paradigm. Because stepping right into the middle of this entrenched battlefield is the massive wild card of the 2026 election.
actor Vijay and his newly formed political party, the Tamilaga Vettri Kazhagam, or TVK.
Vijay's entry is arguably the most significant disruption in Tamil Nadu politics in 20 years. And what the historical records make very clear is that this was not a spontaneous overnight decision.
No, not at all. He didn't just wake up in early 2024, look in the mirror, and decide to enter politics on a whim.
The groundwork has been meticulously laid for well over a decade. The origins of TVK trace back to July 2009.
That's when Vijay organized his massive, sprawling network of film fan clubs, reportedly around 85,000 individual clubs across the state, into a formalized welfare association called Vijay-Makkal-Iyakam.
And they tested the waters early on, right?
They did. They supported the AIADMK Alliance back in 2011, and then they went relatively quiet politically for a long time, focusing on social work and building infrastructure.
But then, in 2021, they tested their actual electoral muscle. They contested the local body elections as independent candidates and won 115 out of the 169 seats they contested.
That was the proof of concept. They proved a fan could be converted into a voter.
From there, it escalated rapidly. On February 2, 2024, he officially launched the TVK as a registered political party.
And by September 2025, they amassed a staggering 15 million plus registered members, and they've appointed over 70,000 booth agents.
Let's pause on that term, booth agents. A booth agent is not just a guy waving a flag at a rally.
Not in Indian elections. A polling booth serves a very specific, localized geographic area, usually a few streets or a village.
Right.
A booth agent is a party worker who sits at that polling station on election day. They have the voter rolls. They know every single family on their street.
Their job is to physically ensure their party supporters turn out to vote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To challenge any fake or proxy votes from the opposition and to monitor the integrity of the process. Having 70,000 booth agents means TVK is not just a digital phenomena or a social media trend.
They've built a terrifyingly large, physical, grassroots machine capable of moving human beings to ballot boxes.
But to move those humans, you need an ideology. A movie star's charisma might get a crowd to a rally, but what is the actual political platform?
I noticed in the analytical brief that TVK is claiming a center-left space, and they're engaging in what the paper calls ideological syncretism.
They are adopting a very specific, almost contradictory set of historical icons. They're holding up Periyar and Ambedkar alongside Kamaraj.
Why does the specific combination of historical figures matter so much?
It matters because it is a highly calculated, almost surgical attempt to hijack the traditional voter bases of the established parties. Let's break those figures down.
Let's do it.
Periyar is the father of the Dravidian movement. He represents radical social justice, rationalism, and the absolute eradication of the caste system.
Okay.
Ambedkar is the chief architect of the Indian Constitution and the ultimate icon for Dalit rights and marginalized communities.
So by claiming Periyar and Ambedkar, Vijay is trying to pull directly from the DMK's core Dravidian base, as well as the Dalit vote bank traditionally represented by allied parties like the VCK.
Exactly, but then he throws Kamaraj into the mix.
Right. Kamaraj, who, as we discussed, is the ultimate Indian National Congress icon in Tamil Nadu.
He represents an era of clean administration, educational reform, and a time before the Dravidian parties took over.
By elevating Kamaraj, Vijay is appealing to the traditional Congress voter base.
And more importantly, to older voters and neutrals who are nostalgic for an era of politics, they perceive to be free of the systemic corruption associated with the modern Dravidian majors.
He is attempting to bridge radical Dravidian social justice with secular clean governance, presenting himself as a completely untainted alternative to both sides.
And he's presenting this alternative on a scale that's almost hard to comprehend. We have to talk about the Vikravandi rally in October 2024.
Oh man, this was the TVK's first major state-level political conference.
The estimates say over 800,000 people attended this event.
Think about the logistics of that. That is like moving the entire population of San Francisco into a single open field for a political speech.
It was mind-boggling.
We actually have translated transcripts from a YouTube video of Vijay speaking at this rally, and the rhetoric is blistering.
Very aggressive.
He aggressively targets the ruling DMK. He talks about how, since 1972, the DMK leadership has acted with absolute impunity because there was no credible force to question them.
The translation from the transcript quotes him saying, "They are playing a game of seeking political gain without any humanity or political ethics."
The transcript is fascinating because it highlights how he uses recent, highly technical, legal, and administrative controversies to attack a government that prides itself on governance.
He references instances where the Supreme Court of India has had to ask harsh questions of the state government.
Vijay argues to the crowd that if the highest court in the land is questioning the state's actions, it means the public's trust is completely buried in the sand.
He warns the DMK leadership that if they don't understand this fundamental loss of faith, the people of Tamil Nadu will make them understand deeply and firmly at the ballot box in 2026.
He boldly predicts that the 2026 election will be a straight fight between just two parties, entirely dismissing the traditional opposition and implying the real battle is only between the TVK and the DMK.
That plays right into his narrative framing, which completely rejects Stalin's strategy. Remember, Stalin wants this to be Tamil Nadu versus New Delhi.
And Vijay says absolutely not. He is framing 2026 as the pure force versus the evil force.
He explicitly paints the DMK as a corrupt, dynastic establishment, labeling them the evil force in regional terms, while framing himself, his clean slate, and the TVK as the pure force that will restore accountability to the state.
He is trying to completely denationalize the election. He doesn't want voters thinking about the federal government. He wants this to be a brutal, direct referendum purely on the state-level governance of the DMK.
This raises a massive structural question, though. While the media spotlight, the massive rallies, and all the oxygen in the room are intensely focused on this heavyweight clash between the incumbent DMK and the disruptive TVK, what on earth is happening to the traditional established principal opposition?
The AIADMK.
Yeah. They governed this state just a few years ago. Are they just sitting on the sidelines watching this happen?
Not at all. While Vijay is throwing massive cinematic rallies and Stalin is inaugurating multi-billion-dollar industrial plants, the AIADMK, currently led by Edappadi K. Palaniswamy, or EPS, is fighting a quiet, ruthless, data-driven war in the trenches.
They're completely bypassing the high-altitude ideological wars. They aren't arguing about fascism or pure versus evil.
They are looking at spreadsheets.
Exactly. EPS and the AIADMK are relying on micro-level electoral mechanics. The analytical brief details how they're utilizing something called booth-wise voter data analysis.
How does that work?
They take the electoral rolls from 2021 and 2024, compare them booth by booth, and literally hunt for missing votes.
I didn't vote.
These are voters who historically supported the AIADMK but either stayed home out of apathy or drifted away to fringe parties. They are mapping these specific households and aggressively targeting them.
And when an AIADMK cadre knocks on that missing voter's door, what are they talking about? They aren't quoting Perrier or talking about electronic export targets.
No, they're talking about the cost of living.
They are running a massive, hyper-local outreach campaign, focusing entirely on the rising costs of daily necessities under the current DMK administration.
They're pointing to increases in milk prices, spikes in electricity tariffs, and hikes in urban property taxes.
They are making a massive gamble that rural and middle-class voters ultimately care a lot more about their monthly household budget than they do about cinematic charisma or the abstract promises of a Dravidian Model 2.0.
It is a highly pragmatic, historically effective strategy. However, alongside this data-driven ground game, the AIADMK is navigating what can only be described as absolute structural chaos in their alliance formations.
The fragility and fluidity of the political rosters in Tamil Nadu right now are enough to give any political scientist whiplash.
Just looking at the NDTV reports and the Wikipedia updates tracking the movements of these politicians, it's a revolving door of defections, betrayals, and realignments.
The AIADMK has made a major, incredibly risky strategic shift by reuniting with the BJP.
Forming an alliance that also includes smaller regional factions like the PMK and the AMMK.
This is a massive gamble for EPS. On one hand, partnering with the national ruling party provides the AIADMK with substantial financial resources, immense logistical support, and the sheer institutional backing of the central government.
But simultaneously, it exposes them perfectly to the exact narrative the DMK is pushing. It allows Stalin to stand on a stage and say, look, a vote for the AIADMK is a vote to bring New Delhi's fascism directly into Tamil Nadu.
And while they're trying to manage that massive external narrative risk, internally, the parties are fracturing at the seams. We're seeing these massive homecomings and high-profile defections.
For example, O. Paneerselvam, known as OPS.
This is a man who was a former chief minister, a massive figure in the AIADMK, and deeply loyal to JLFA.
He was expelled after a brutal internal power struggle with EPS, and he eventually jumped all the way across the aisle to join his lifelong rivals, the DMK, bringing allies like PH Manoj Pandian and PIAPAN with him,
Meanwhile, another AIADMK veteran and former minister, K. Sengotayan, was expelled and immediately leaped over to join Vijay's TVK.
where he was instantly rewarded and made the chief coordinator of their high-level administrative committee.
Even the PMK, a crucial alliance partner for the AIADMK, suffered a severe internal split between factions led by Anbumani Ramados and S. Ramados. It is a constant daily reshuffling of the political deck.
What's fascinating here is how the TVK is exploiting this chaos.
Hmm.
In the middle of all this defection and realignment, Vijay is executing a highly disruptive political maneuver, the power-sharing gambit.
During his Vikravandi rally, he made an absolutely unprecedented offer in the context of Tamil Nadu politics. He stated publicly that the TVK is willing to share cabinet seats, actual, tangible ministerial power with any alliance partners who join their front.
To understand why that is an earthquake, you have to understand that historically, the major Dravidian parties have guarded cabinet seats like dragons guarding gold.
The DMK, for instance, has strictly refused power-sharing arrangements with its allies. Even when the DMK relies on a massive coalition of parties like the Congress or the VCK to win an election, they insist on running a single-party government.
The allies get a voice, but they do not get ministries.
So by offering cabinet seats, Vijay is directly baiting those exact DMK allies. He is testing whether a party's desire for direct administrative power, budgets, and ministerial portfolios outweighs their long-standing ideological alignment with the Secular Progressive Alliance.
So far, the established allies like VCK Chief Fall, Thirumavalavan have remained publicly cautious, reaffirming their ties to the DMK. But the offer alone acts as a wedge.
It creates tension, jealousy, and leverage within the DMK's ranks. It's a brilliant tactical move to destabilize the incumbents coalition from the outside.
However, the TVK's massive momentum hasn't been without severe, tragic setbacks. And as an impartial deep dive, we have to look at all the source material, which brings us to the darkest and most volatile moment of this entire campaign cycle so far.
In September 2025, during a massive TVK campaign rally on the outskirts of Karur, a horrific crowd crush occurred.
Impartially reporting the facts derived from the source documents and news updates. 41 people died in the stampede, and between 80 to 120 others were severely injured.
It was a devastating, heartbreaking loss of life. And in the highly charged atmosphere of an impending election, the political fallout was immediate, explosive, and deeply bitter.
The police response was swift. The Karur police filed a first information report, an FIR, against the local TVK organizers.
The allegations detailed in the FIR are damning. They state that the organizers deliberately delayed Vijay's appearance on stage by 4 hours.
The allegation is that they did this intentionally to let the crowd swell to dangerous levels in an attempt to show off their political strength and massive crowd-pulling capacity to the media.
The FIR claims the organizers blatantly ignored repeated police warnings about crowd density and failed to provide adequate barricades or crowd control measures for the massive turnout.
The DMK government immediately seized on this tragedy. They weaponized the event as horrific proof of the TVK's administrative incompetence and gross irresponsibility.
They argued that a party that cannot safely manage a single rally cannot possibly be trusted to manage the complex administrative machinery of a state of 80 million people.
The state government launched a formal one-member inquiry commission headed by a retired judge, Aruna Jagadisan, to thoroughly investigate the causes of the crush.
It was a massive direct blow to Vijay's carefully cultivated narrative of being a pure, efficient, and competent alternative to the establishment.
Vijay and the TVK leadership fired back aggressively. They immediately offered $2 million in financial compensation to the families of each of the deceased and $200,000 to the injured.
Vijay personally traveled to Mamallapuram to visit the victims' families, expressing his condolences and promising support. But on the political front, the TVK went on the offensive.
They accused the deeply entrenched DMK ecosystem, the police, the local administration, the allied media, of deliberately engineering the logistical failures that led to the tragedy in order to malign the TVK's image.
They claimed the Aruna Jagadisan Commission was inherently politically motivated and hastily appointed to produce a predetermined guilty verdict.
The situation escalated until the Supreme Court of India intervened, ordering the Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, a federal agency, to probe the stampede and constituting an independent oversight panel to ensure neutrality.
It's a grim reminder of the high stakes and human cost of political mobilization on this scale. But as we move closer to polling day, we have to transition from the rallies and the tragedies to the cold, hard mathematics of how an election is actually won.
How do massive crowds, welfare schemes, and shifting alliances translate into actual votes in a ballot box.
Exactly. Let's bring in the academic paper by Surya B. Aids to ground all of this incredible hype and rhetoric in statistical reality.
Right, because the TVK has been claiming internally and projecting to the media that they currently hold a 28% vote share across the state.
If true, that would be an absolute political tsunami. But is it true?
Surya B. Aids' paper takes a very critical historical look at that 28% claim and logically dismantles it.
The paper asks a fundamental question. How does a brand new political party, regardless of the star power of its leader, actually reach 28% of the statewide vote on its very first outing?
To achieve that math, they would have to completely sweep a massive section of first-time voters, successfully pull huge, unprecedented numbers of deeply disillusioned traditional voters away from both the DMK and the AIADMK, and build an airtight, flawless organizational structure across all 234 individual constituencies overnight.
Which history shows is incredibly unlikely.
Precisely. Let's look at the historical benchmarks for celebrity political debuts in Tamil Nadu. When Vijay DMK debuted in 2006, after years of intense political buildup and massive fan mobilization, they hit roughly 8% of the vote.
And when Kamal Hassan's M&M debuted with massive urban media hype in 2021, they secured around 3% to 4%.
Even the name Tamilaga, the NTK, which is not a celebrity vehicle but a party with a deeply established, highly vocal ideological base, hovers consistently around 6% to 7%.
No party in modern Tamil Nadu history debuts anywhere near 30%. The academic paper suggests the 28% figure is likely internal propaganda based on social media engagement metrics and rally attendance, rather than scientifically stratified polling of likely voters.
But the paper doesn't dismiss the TVK entirely. It just recalibrates the expectations to reality. And this is where the concept of the third poll becomes the most fascinating aspect of the 2026 election.
Specifically, the dynamic between the TVK and that other party you mentioned, the Nam Tamilar Kachi, the NTK.
The NTK is led by Seaman, and they run on a platform of strict, uncompromising Tamil nationalism.
They reject the Dravidian identity entirely, arguing it's a linguistic construct that allows non-Tamils to hold power. They argue that only a native Tamil by origin should rule Tamil Nadu.
They've been a highly consistent force over the last few cycles, contesting completely alone without alliances and pulling that solid 6% to 7% vote share. They rely heavily on the youth vote, the rural protest vote, and deep-seated anti-establishment sentiment.
Now, there is some strategic tension in our SIT materials regarding the NTK's role in 2026. In December 2025, the NTK officially announced they'd be contesting the upcoming elections completely solo across all 234 constituencies.
And they even went ahead and released their first list of official candidates.
However, Surya B. Aids' academic projection analyzes the potential devastating impact of a combined TVK-NTK bloc.
Whether this materializes as a formal pre-poll alliance at the 11th hour or simply a tacit issue-based understanding between the cadres on the ground, the paper argues that these two forces essentially appeal to the exact same demographic profile.
Disenfranchised youth, urban voters, first-time voters, and those fiercely dissatisfied with the decades-long rule of the two Dravidian majors.
Under highly realistic assumptions, the paper projects that this combined disruptive bloc might capture somewhere between 10% and 15% of the total statewide vote.
And to a casual observer, 10% to 15% might sound like a failure. It means you don't form the government. But in India's first past-the-post electoral system, 15% is incredibly dangerous. It is a lethal weapon.
Let's break down why that math matters so much. In a first-past-the-post system, you don't need 51% of the vote to win a seat. You just need one vote more than the person in second place.
Imagine a hypothetical constituency with 100 voters. The incumbent DMK has a rock-solid, welfare-fueled, loyal base of 45 voters.
The AIADMK opposition needs 46 votes to win. The AIADMK currently has 40 loyalists and is desperately trying to win over the 15 undecided or anti-incumbent voters using their cost of living campaign.
And then the disruptor enters the race.
Right. The TVK steps in, they run a massive, flashy campaign, and they appeal directly to that anger. They capture 10 of those 15 undecided voters.
The final result. The TVK loses with 10 votes, the AIADMK loses with 45 votes, and the incumbent DMK coasts to victory with their original 45 loyalists.
The disruptor didn't win, but they acted as a massive spoiler.
The paper lays out these exact stakes perfectly on a macro level. If the DMK's massive alliance manages to retain its baseline vote share of around 43% to 47%, they will win the election comfortably. It will mean their welfare shield, the free buses, the breakfast schemes held the fortress.
But if that TDK-NTK block hits 15% by peeling off the urban youth, they become the ultimate spoilers. They might only win a handful of seats themselves, but they will siphon tens of thousands of anti-incumbent votes in tight marginal constituencies.
By doing so, they could completely upend the AIADMK's recovery plan, which requires the AIADMK to hit somewhere between 35% and 39% to even be competitive.
The TVK might just be the political wrecking ball that crushes the traditional opposition while completely failing to even dent the incumbent's fortress.
So, synthesizing this grand, incredibly complex chessboard as we head toward the May 2026 polls, we have three distinct forces colliding.
On one side, we have the proven, heavily entrenched Dravidian Model 2.0 of Chief Minister M.K. Stalin and the DMK.
They are relying on a booming trillion-dollar economic vision paired with unmatched, deeply granular social welfare delivery to protect their incumbency against all challengers.
On another side, we have the quiet, relentless, data-driven cost of living attacks from Edapadi K. Palaniswamy and the AIADMK-BJP Alliance, hoping their micro-targeting of missing votes can recover their rural and middle-class base.
And crashing violently into the middle of this decades-old comfortable duopoly is the massive, untested, celebrity-fueled populist wave of Vijay's Tamilaga Vettri Kazhagam.
They're trying to rewrite the absolute rules of the game with a 15 million member army, a chaotic blend of historical ideologies, and promises of a pure government free from the sins of the past.
It is a live, high-stakes case study that political scientists, economists, and sociologists will be analyzing for decades to come.
We are watching in real time on the ground to see whether decades of deeply entrenched political machinery and systemic welfare economics can truly be disrupted overnight by digital mobilization, youth anger, and sheer overwhelming cinematic star power.
Will the traditional structures hold the line? Or are we witnessing the messy, chaotic birth of a fundamental realignment of Tamil Nadu's entire political identity?
It is utterly fascinating.
It is, and it leaves you with a final, provocative thought to mull over as you watch the election results roll in this coming May.
Tamil Nadu is a state practically invented by the concept of the actor-politician.
From MGR's righteous heroism to Jayalalitha's commanding presence, the cinematic chief minister has been the defining staple of their political reality for half a century.
But if a movement with 15 million registered members, armed with 70,000 booth agents, led by arguably one of the biggest, most bankable stars of his entire generation, still cannot manage to break the organized, welfare-heavy Dravidian duopoly.
Is the era of the cinematic chief minister finally over? Has the magic of the silver screen been permanently replaced by the cold, calculated era of the data-driven technocrat?
A great question to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.